This week on the PRESSURECAST, Zelda gets a season pass, PewDiePie gets canceled by YouTube, and big changes are on the way for PlayStation Now. It's Monday, February 20th, 2017. Everything happening in the world of video games is here, now, on the PRESSURECAST. Hey, Pressure Pals, welcome to the 169th episode of the PRESSURECAST, VideoGamesAreDumb.com's weekly news panic that posts every single Monday on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn Radio, Google Play Music, and America's longest running independent newspaper at ShepherdExpress.com. My name is Colin Tanner, and I'm caffeinated, so caffeinated, and ready to ramble to you about some goddamn video games. But in case you never listened to the PRESSURECAST before, shame on you! But you know what? I am a generous emperor. I will invite you to my castle of PRESSURECAST, even if you've never been here before. That is how these things work. Each week, the PRESSURECAST slices up the latest video game news, past, present, and future. I know that sounds confusing. Trust me, we do it because we slice up all the news in several sensational segments and jam it right in your ears in 2 hours or less. You can obviously see if it's been 2 hours or less because you can just look at the time code right there, you know? And what is it? I don't even know what it's going to be. I haven't recorded the episode yet, so you are wiser than I am. But in case you want to contact the PRESSURECAST, it's easy. You can email pressurecast@gmail.com. You can tweet at VGADumb. That stands for Video Games Are Dumb. Or you can even leave a comment below on the old YouTubes right there. We got the YouTube comments. You can just leave a comment right there, and I'll read and go, huh. I guess I'll answer this on the air. Or you can call or text 954-947-7377. Speaking of which, we're going to kick off the show by listening back to the listeners, by talking back to the viewers, and a little something we like to call Thank You for the Email. Yes, this is where people contact the show from, you know, all the things I just mentioned. And by the way, if you didn't catch all that, if you're like, oh, slow down, man, I didn't even know what that email address was, just check the description of the podcast or of this YouTube page. All of the links are available below. Keon contacted us, friend of the show, Keon. He's always calling up the pressure line at 954-947-7377 and leaving some amazing voicemails. Well, I guess without further ado, take it away, Keon.
Hey, what's going on, Colin? How you feeling today, my man? I hope all is well in your neighborhood, brother. This is Keon calling from Baltimore. I just had to ask you a very quick question. Your opinion, your take. I have to get this. Now, we know Microsoft not necessarily dropped a bombshell. I wouldn't go that far like some people are really hyping it up to be. But Microsoft did make an interesting announcement by saying that they're going to have their E3 press conference on Sunday, which is something we have never seen before. So in your opinion, Colin, do you think that this is a good move? And do you think that we will see a big focus on the games, or will we see more of a focus on the console itself, that console being the Scorpio? Because I'm thinking that, hey, if they do it on Sunday, that gives them the whole day, you know, where all of the press, all of the attention in the industry will be on them, and they don't have to worry about Sony possibly taking that shine away later on that night. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. You know, will they show the Scorpio, or will they concentrate on the games? And then on Monday, when Sony does their conference, do you think that they'll counter it with something else? I know this is kind of a convoluted question. Hopefully you can break it down. Sorry I didn't explain it better, but just wanted to get your opinion, Colin. Thank you so much for the hard work that you do. Greatly appreciate it. And with that, brother, I'm going to sign off, and you take care. Bye-bye.
Oh, what a great voicemail. Keon, thank you for the voicemail. E3, the Electronic Entertainment Expo. Once a year, the biggest giants in the video game industry merge together in one place. I mean, unless you count people that make MOBAs, which are actually the biggest games in the world, but everyone else merges into one environment and dukes it out. And Microsoft has shown its hand early. because they've said, hey, you know what? We're not going to be doing Monday morning anymore. We're doing Sunday morning. And Keon's like, why? Why are they doing this? What is the rationale behind this? And he does bring up a good point. They're going to be talking a lot about Scorpio. And the thing about new consoles is that they have to talk a lot about hardware specs. So rather than talking about the games, they're going to be like, and this is what the RAM does, and now we're going to show you a graphic of like balls dropping from the sky. Look how many more balls there are on this new console compared to the old one. Because let's face it, the Xbox One Scorpio is going to be very similar to the original Xbox One, but the Scorpio is far and away more powerful than even the PlayStation 4 Pro. But why? Why this whole Sunday scenario? Well, like I said, they're going to be talking about hardware specs. But if you look at what else is going to be happening the next couple of days at E3, following the Microsoft conference, which of course I do want to note this, I do want to mention it. It's going to be taking place at 5 Eastern, 4 p.m. Central on Sunday, June 11th. If it's anything like last year, this will be right before there's the what do you call it there? The Bethesda press conference. You know, Bethesda, they make the Fallouts and they make all that kind of stuff. Hopefully Microsoft has done something with Bethesda. That way, as soon as they're done with their conference, they can have some sort of presence with Bethesda and be like, oh yeah, so, you know, here's Elder Scrolls 6. I'm not saying there's going to be Elder Scrolls 6. I'm just using an example. Or here's the new Wolfenstein. Here's what it looks like on the original Xbox, and it looks amazing. Well, here's what it looks like on Scorpio. It looks even more amazing. And I'm sure we're also going to get a lot of name drops for PlayStation 4 Pro. It is worth pointing out, this will be the very first E3 where we'll have the PlayStation 4 Pro out. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle showing off videos of these games and what kind of footage we're going to get. Because if you played some of the recent games like For Honor or Neo or other games that I can't think of off the top of my head, there's a clear difference between the PlayStation 4 Pro and the original PlayStation. I'm sure the same thing is going to be happening with Scorpio. But more importantly, you know, the next day there's Ubisoft. They've obviously supported the PlayStation 4 Pro. They'll be talking about the Xbox One Scorpio in some capacity, I imagine. But more importantly, in the previous years, how long has Microsoft really had a chance to control the conversation? They happen in Monday morning, Sony would happen Monday night. And it would be like, what, 8 hours? 8 hours where they wouldn't have to deal with PlayStation news? They never got a chance to own that conversation. Or more importantly, to correct and clarify anything they said during their E3 press conference. Remember when they launched, or remember when they announced the Xbox One at E3 2013, or I guess that's when they showed off the games. They had to correct so many misconceptions and get it done before PlayStation could just swoop in and be like, and here's all the stuff we're doing. And they took away all of Xbox's thunder. So instead of having an 8-hour window, they're going to have more than 24 hours where people will have a chance to talk about the Scorpio and get excited for the Scorpio. And all in all, I think that's a really smart move. Now, there's one wild card in all of this, and that is EA. EA obviously is a huge third-party publisher. They support Xbox heavily because that's where the EA Vault is, the EA Access feature. That's exclusively on Xbox and PC. It's not available on PlayStation 4. But EA has already announced they're going to be holding EA Play again this year. That's that public event that's slightly, a couple of blocks away from E3. They're going to be having their event kick off on Saturday. And if that's anything like last year, we could expect that the press conference for EA will happen on a Saturday. So it's kind of like, that's a little odd. I wouldn't be surprised to see EA have some sort of presence on that Microsoft stage, though. I'm really curious to see how this all shakes out, but I want to hear from you guys. Do you think this was a smart move via Microsoft to move their press conference to Sunday, or do you like it better when they're on Mondays? One day where the biggest console manufacturers collide. Also, I'm really curious to see, what's Nintendo going to do? Huh? Are they going to do that same old song and dance where it's just some previously recorded video, or will they get on stage, put their balls on the line? This is tough guy talk. This is how tough people talk. They put the balls on the line in front of a live audience and see what kind of reaction they get. I hope they do. But anyway, Keon, thank you for the voicemail. Remember, 954-947-7377. That is text messages and voice messages to be read on air, or pressurecast@gmail.com, or at VGADumb, or the YouTube comments below. Whoa. I just heard something. Oh no. It's coming, isn't it? It's getting closer. Oh my god. Oh, Never mind. Why am I worried? It's just the hype train. Feel the PR vibrations as we barrel towards video game satisfaction station on the hype train. This is the Pirate Show. We talk about all those upcoming video games and events to get you hyped up to spend your money and become a video game guru. I really wonder what people think of that. If they've never listened to the show before and they just hear me making train noises, what am I talking about? I don't make train noises. The hype train makes train noises. I never make any of the noises. That's silliness. Anyway, we are going to start it off with some Sony news. Last week we were talking about PlayStation Now because they just add a bunch of Koei Tecmo games onto the service. In case you don't know, PlayStation Now is a cloud streaming game service, kind of like Netflix. You would sit at your PlayStation 3 or your Vita or your PC or your PlayStation 4, you select a game and it streams the game to you. You know, you're obviously playing with a controller. It would take those inputs and send it back to a server. So the game doesn't have to be downloaded at all. It's all being played on a piece of hardware somewhere in the United States. It's a very ambitious project. Except it's always felt like it was kind of stuck in the mud because as big of a deal as this is, they never really advertised it all that much. However, Sony has released a statement recently saying they are getting rid of PlayStation Now for a number of platforms. Here's what it says. Quote, after thoughtful consideration, we decided to shift our focus resources to PlayStation 4 and Windows PC to further develop and improve the user experience on these two devices. This move puts us in the best position to grow the service even further. In other words, PlayStation Now is being canceled on Sony's Blu-ray players, Samsung televisions, and even Sony's own Bravia televisions, which also had PlayStation Now, kind of like how they have Netflix installed. But it's also being canceled for the PlayStation 3, the PlayStation Vita, and the PlayStation TV. If you're scratching your head and going, what the hell is a PlayStation TV? That is a Vita without the screen that has an HDMI output so that you can just, play it directly on your TV. It's not something many people own. I own one. I like it, but, not many other people. It's kind of funny to read this news, especially if you were talking about last week, because PlayStation Now overall has been such a disappointment in many regards. Maybe not in terms of a service, but in terms of marketing and really making it a big deal, because it is a big deal. This is a streaming game service that actually works. It works really well. And I do want to take you back to, I believe it was 2011, 2012, when Sony purchased Gaikai. They're the company that runs PlayStation Now. They invented this very specific type of technology. Now, they didn't invent game streaming altogether, but they had a patent on a very particular way to send and receive that data, which works incredibly well. A lot of people were excited for it, and it debuted on PlayStation 4, and it was like, all right, this is a great idea. And then they're like, well, it's coming to PlayStation 3. And I was like, huh? Why? It's coming to PlayStation Vita. What are you doing? It's coming to PlayStation TV. This doesn't make any sense. We're putting it in Blu-ray players. Okay, slow down, man. You don't need to put it everywhere. And I think that's really kind of hurt the service's perception overall because, having it available on a Blu-ray player, which means you have to get some sort of controller that'll connect to that, it's weird, it's awkward, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I really believe, this is my conspiracy theory right here, the reason PlayStation Now has not been able to maybe produce the best performance overall is because it's fighting maybe some legacy hardware. Like they are trying to make it work for a PlayStation 3 or a PlayStation Vita or a Bravia television, which is ridiculous. And now they're going to be able to just focus on PlayStation 4 and PC and polish that up as best they can. Right now, the only games that are really available are just PlayStation 3 games, which is awesome because PlayStation 3 is really difficult to emulate because it uses the cell architecture, the cell chip, which was this whole thing Sony wanted to use in everything from refrigerators to cars and somehow cure cancer. I'm not making this up. You should look it up. That's a true story, by the way. And besides that, I've seen some people that are really disappointed because this service will be ending for all of those platforms. For the televisions, it's ending in April, I want to say, but for the PlayStation 3 and the rest of them, it's ending in August of this year, 2017. But some people are really disappointed. They're like, well, what the hell? I bought a PlayStation 3. Why won't Sony support me? But let's consider this for a second. By the time they pull the plug on this, the PlayStation 3 will be 11 years old. And then when they announced the PlayStation 3 back in 2006, they said they had a 10-year cycle planned. well, it's been 11 years. I guess they can finally say this is the end. And in fact, I want to bring up another point that I was talking about with PlayStation 3 and maybe, hurting the overall service. I wouldn't be surprised if the reason PlayStation 4 suffers from such sluggish downloads, like doesn't even come close to maximizing your bandwidth, is because they are dealing with legacy servers. And perhaps this is just the first sign of Sony maybe sunsetting the PlayStation 3. I mean, they're taking a service like PlayStation Now and being like, nope, we're getting rid of it. So if you got a PlayStation 3, you might want to download those games right now. Just saying. Or, maybe they'll give you a voucher to be able to play them on PlayStation Now whenever you want, instead of having to download them. That would be a cool idea. But who knows? Toot toot! Activision has revealed the release date for the upcoming Crash Bandicoot remaster. Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy will be released on June 30th on the PlayStation 4, of course, and will retail for $40. The package will include the first 3 games, which originally launched on the PlayStation 1 way back in the late 90s. While the remaster will retain the exact same levels and gameplay of the classic titles, the entire project is being built from the ground up. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of excited for this. If you've never played the Crash Bandicoot games, they were very early 3D platformers, and they were good. They're actually very good games, although they are incredibly difficult, especially the first one. I assume everyone watching this knows who Crash Bandicoot is. But one of the things I think is really fascinating, about this release is previously I was under the assumption this was sort of a make good for longtime PlayStation fans, because of course, I forget who it was, but someone was wearing a Crash Bandicoot t-shirt at a press conference. Yes, this is really how weird, video games are. So someone was wearing a t-shirt, and all the fans were like, oh, what the hell, man? You better announce a Crash Bandicoot game or we're gonna get pissed off. And it's like, oh, well, that's silly. But obviously they listened. They worked with Activision, because Activision owns Crash Bandicoot right now, which is, that's a long story about how they ended up with that. And so Sony is going to be working with them to release this project. I was under the assumption that this was just, like I said, a make good, for older fans, a nostalgic throwback. Now I'm thinking it's actually them trying to cater to the kids that are out there right now that maybe are not as familiar with Crash Bandicoot, because there haven't been that many Crash Bandicoot games outside of an appearance in Skylanders. So they're releasing it in summer vacation. You got the kids home from college, you got the kids home from high school, you got the kids home from grade school. They're going to have a chance to sit down and really, experience Crash Bandicoot. And if you look at the way they're designing this character, he's kind of different now. Previously, he was skulking around and looking like, ooh, I'm going to get you guys, even though he'd also freak out and scream. But now they're emphasizing how crazy he is. Like, his eyes are going in different directions. I mean, it basically looks like Crash Bandicoot through the DreamWorks animation studio, if that makes any sense. So I think what Activision is really doing right now is they are trying to reintroduce Crash Bandicoot to a younger audience before probably releasing a multi-platform game, because like I said, they own it, not Sony. They just don't own the rights to the original trilogy, which of course were made by Naughty Dog. So I think, don't be surprised if next year we have some new Crash Bandicoot games on the Xbox One and Nintendo Switch and all that, which is kind of cool. Let me know if you are excited for this upcoming Insane Trilogy. A toot toot. According to the United States Patent and Trademark Office, Capcom has once again filed a trademark for their long-in-development game, Deep Down. Little is known about the actual project, but it was publicly revealed alongside the PlayStation 4 way back in 2013. Yes, really, 4 years ago this month, Capcom announced and showed off this game. The project quickly went dark, with Capcom only occasionally confirming its continued development. So, they have filed a trademark. They have filed a patent. They filed a pep. I think that's the way you say that word. They filed a... Whatever. They filed a trademark, all right? We're just going to go with that. They filed a trademark on Deep Down again. Doesn't confirm anything. They're just protecting what they already own. But it just kind of raised the question, what the hell exactly is going on with this game? In case you don't know, this was a kind of a blend between Assassin's Creed from a narrative standpoint and Dark Souls from a gameplay standpoint. Or maybe you could even say, like Dragon's Dogma, if you remember that older Capcom title. It involved knights, and they were fighting dragons, and they kept saying it was going to be really real, like it was going to resemble real life, which I don't know how the fuck a dragon does that, but sure, Capcom, you do you. But yes, the project just evaporated. No one knows what happened to it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Deep Down this E3, because really consider this for a second. what is Capcom up to right now? They're probably making a Monster Hunter. They're making that DLC for Resident Evil 7. That's all we know. And the only other project that I'm really aware that's currently in development is Deep Down. And, you know, after 4 years of the console being out, because this is a PlayStation 4 exclusive, wouldn't surprise me if at E3 they finally pull the trigger, because they need games badly. Capcom is not in a good way. You know, Street Fighter V underperformed. Umbrella Corps underperformed. Did not have a good financial year outside of Resident Evil 7. So hopefully we'll see some Deep Down real soon. Toot toot. This week's Xbox One backwards compatibility list might be small because it's only one title, but it does make up for it in controversy. The decisive 2012 Hitman Absolution is now available on the Xbox One through backwards compatibility, and there's really not much to this story, but I do like to cover what games are being made backwards compatible, because I think it's a good public service announcement if you want to play those games. But on top of that, I like having the opportunity to talk about older games, and Hitman Absolution is one of those games that I really believe deserves a second chance. When that game was released, so many people were turned off from it, because it was not the classic Hitman experience. It was far more streamlined. It was made by Eidos, and it kind of resembles the Tomb Raider reboot in some ways. You know, there are definitely set pieces that are tunneling you through to one single objective. Very, very, very linear in certain areas. So people crapped all over it. But I really liked Hitman Absolution. I thought it was actually a pretty good game. And I think the reason people reacted to this is they believed that was it for Hitman. This was the direction of Hitman. Clearly it wasn't, because now we have these episodic games, which are excellent and arguably the best Hitman games ever in the classic Hitman style. So, whatever. I like it when I fumble over my words. I think it's funny. But now that obviously Hitman is back, it's still in its classic form, I think this game deserves a second look. Maybe not as a Hitman title, but just let it stand on its own, because it has a really cool, grungy, disturbing art style, kind of like in the vein of Hitman Contracts, if you remember that game. And I thought it was just a ton of fun. Really good story too. I don't know. Check it out. Hitman Absolution. You can get it for like $5 at GameStop. Play it on your Xbox One. It's a good game, okay? Okay then. Toot toot. Sad news for Nintendo. The company has confirmed to the video game website IGN that yet a number of yet-to-be-released Switch units, their upcoming console, were stolen, and one was resold. In a statement, Nintendo said, quote, "Earlier this week, individuals claimed to prematurely purchase a small number of Nintendo Switch systems from an unspecified retailer. Nintendo has determined that these units were stolen in an isolated incident by employees of a U.S. distributor, with one system being illegally resold. The individuals involved have been identified, terminated from their place of employment, and are under investigation by local law enforcement authorities on criminal charges." End quote. Ooh, you gotta feel bad for those guys. I'm gonna guess it was UPS. Just gonna put that out there. I can't confirm that. I mean, maybe it was someone from GameStop or Best Buy or one of those retailers, but I'm gonna guess it's UPS because people steal shit from there. Seriously, it's a mess. There are a few details about how many were actually stolen, or even, if there were more than one resold. But I do have information here that the one that was stolen was yours. Yes, you, listener, the one that you pre-ordered. Sorry. You can't get it now. They stole yours. Also in a statement, Nintendo confirmed that mine, yes, me, is just fine. Anyway, moving on. Toot toot. Much to the surprise of longtime Nintendo fans, the company has announced a season pass for the upcoming Zelda Breath of the Wild. This is going to be a lengthy statement, so, please buckle up here. Quote, here's what Nintendo says about this season pass for Zelda. Starting when the game launches on March 3rd, players will be able to purchase an expansion pass for $19.99, $20. Granting access to 2 new sets of downloadable content for the game when they become available later this year. Immediately upon pre-purchase or purchase of the expansion pass, 3 new treasure chests will appear in the game's Great Plateau area. One of these treasure chests will contain a shirt with the Nintendo Switch logo that Link can wear during his adventure. Whatever, we'll get to that. Exclusive to the expansion pass. The other 2 will deliver useful items. Good to hear. The first content pack is scheduled to launch this summer and will include the addition of Cave of Trials challenge, a new hard mode, and a new feature for the in-game map. The second content pack will launch. I'm stumbling here. Will launch in holiday 2017 and adds new challenges that let players enjoy a new dungeon and a new original story. The expansion pass will be available for both Nintendo Switch and Wii U versions of the game. That's basically the whole thing. Oh, and one last bit. Content packs cannot be purchased individually. So you have to buy it all at once, $20, or you're not getting anything. This is, first of all, I do want to mention one thing. The idea that you could be playing Zelda Breath of the Wild on the Wii U and you're wearing a Switch t-shirt, that cracks me up. Like, here's the console you should have bought. Take that. It's silly. I've seen some people online, believe it or not, complaining. I know, it's weird. People on the internet are upset because something happened. And I kind of understand where they're coming from in some ways, because they're saying, hey, this isn't worth $20. It's non-essential, and we want more details. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But when it comes down to it, if you think it's not worth $20 and you think it's non-essential, why complain? You're not going to buy it. Who cares? You don't have to buy it. Just relax. It's $20. It's non-essential. Then don't spend the money. But that's just it. Longtime fans, they get that little thing in the back of their head where like, yeah, but I want to have everything. I want to have everything in this brand new Zelda game. So I wouldn't be surprised if it does very well. I personally know one person that already bought the expansion pass, because they're that pumped for Zelda, which, good for them. However, this description is kind of lame. There's just not a lot of detail when they're like, oh, we got 2 useful items. Great. Ooh, I can't wait to get both of those items that will be of use to me. Like, what does that even mean? I mean, the idea of having a hard mode, I'm like, okay, that seems kind of weird that you're putting that into a season pass, but fair enough. The idea of wearing a Switch t-shirt, kind of weird, kind of breaking the Zelda universe. The idea of it acknowledging that there are consoles to be sold instead of just being a magical world. And just the idea that they're just like, oh, there's going to be a cave where you'll be challenged and a new story. It's like, give me a little more about that story. Now, we don't even really know what the story for Breath of the Wild is, so maybe that's why they're having to be a little bit hush-hush, but I would appreciate some detail. It's like a story centered around Zelda chasing after a groundhog that steals his hat. It's Hat Quest. Does that work? Doesn't that make you more excited already? Instead of just being like, oh, this is going to be an original story. All right, see you later. I will say I'm very glad that they are doing this whole thing where it's like, nope, it's $20 or you don't get anything. We're not going to sell this piecemeal. Because honestly, who's going to spend the money to get one useful item or one t-shirt? That's the way to go. And, so far, Nintendo's done pretty good with DLC. I mean, they had, if I'm not mistaken, they had DLC for Mario Golf on the 3DS, which apparently was very good, the DLC was. I really like the DLC on Mario Kart. But once again, that DLC is kind of obvious. They're like, hey, we're giving you new tracks. Great, I know exactly what I'm getting. Or, we're going to give you more golf courses. Great, I know exactly what I'm getting. We're going to give you another story. What does that mean? Anyway, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Toot toot! NIS has confirmed that Disgaea 5 Complete will launch on the Nintendo Switch May 23rd. Not that it may come out on the 23rd, it's coming out on May 23rd. Originally launched on the PlayStation 4 in 2015, this version will include all of the DLC. As the name suggests, Disgaea 5 is the 5th entry in the long-running series of tactical RPGs. Colin, why did you put this on the PRESSURECAST? Disgaea 5, you're talking about the release date for this like 2-year-old game on the Switch? What's the big deal? Hear me out. In case you don't know, Disgaea fans love Disgaea, obviously. But I remember when I did a video on Disgaea 5 on the PlayStation 4, and I liked it. I thought it was fun. I mean, it was obviously very dense, and it's a very lengthy game. I enjoyed it, but I kept seeing these comments where they were saying, that's cool. I mean, it looks great on the PlayStation 4. I'm going to wait for the Vita version. And the reason they kept saying that is because Disgaea 1, 2, 3, and 4 were all released on Sony handhelds, whether it was the PSP or whether it was the Vita. And when they released Disgaea 5, they also announced they would not be porting the game to the Vita at all. They got out ahead of that. And you got to keep in mind that this is when developers in general do not say that. They either say, oh, we're currently investing, we're looking into certain areas of development to see where there might be potential opportunities. That's what we're really interested in. They just flat up said no. They're like, no, that is not coming to the Vita. Do not wait for that to come out on the Vita. And I know a lot of Disgaea fans were disappointed by that news. Now comes the Switch. with all of the DLC, and that is a console, and that is a handheld. I'm not saying that this guy sells a lot of units. It doesn't. I don't even think it's any of the games have cracked 1 million. You know, if I'm wrong about that, let me know. But I don't believe they have, or just barely over 1 million. But the opportunity to play one of your favorite tactical RPGs that you know will give you hundreds of hours of gameplay, not exaggerating, hundreds of hours of gameplay on the go, on a Switch, I think that's actually going to sell units. I think this is really smart because every little bit matters when it comes to a launch of a new console. Whatever can just sort of tip someone over the edge where they go, Zelda looks okay. Oh, this guy, I really like that game too. All right, cool. Yeah, we're going to do this. So all in all, that's actually a pretty big deal for the Nintendo Switch. Toot toot. Speaking of Nintendo, earlier this week, the company sent out Switch consoles to the press. While skimming through the game's settings, Twitter user Bjorn the Smexy, I don't know, he has a stupid little funny name, discovered a welcome change from Nintendo's prior hardware in regard to download games. In the description, in the console, it reads, quote, "Your Nintendo account contains your Nintendo eShop purchase history and current balance. By relinking your Nintendo account after initializing the console, it will be possible to re-download any software or DLC using that account. Software that has been discontinued may not be available to re-download in some cases. Nintendo's current consoles, the Wii U and 3DS, link all of their purchases to hardware rather than user accounts, meaning damaged or lost consoles make it more or less impossible to retrieve purchased software." Oh, thank God. Thank God. Because I don't know about you, if you've ever owned more than one 3DS, you have to do this weird thing where you have both 3DSs side by side and you're swapping out, SD cards and preparing transfers and they're talking to each other. It's this barbaric, weird thing that Nintendo has insisted on for, a decade, even going back to the original Wii. And it's been inexcusable. Can you imagine that if you bought a PlayStation 4 Pro and you log into your system and it's like, nope, you can't download any of your games. Or if you buy an Xbox One Scorpio, nope, you don't have access to any of your games. You need to go get your old console and then connect it to this one and then transfer it. It was barbaric. And there was no excuse for it because when the Wii U launched, they did this thing where if you purchased some games on Virtual Console on the Wii, you would get a discount on the Wii U. Now, the only way that system would work is if they had the information on what games you already purchased, right? Because besides that, you obviously have an account that's going to Nintendo, and there's a reason you can re-download software. They always had this information, but for whatever reason, they wanted to make it extremely difficult because they were afraid of piracy or something stupid. So thank God that is over with. Hooray. Now let's just hope we can also get all of our Virtual Console games back that we already paid for on the Wii U. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I'm really hoping it does. Or, even give me one flat fee. Pay $20 and you can import all your Virtual Console games. Come on, Nintendo. Anyway, toot toot. And lastly, before we get on to this week's releases, Capcom has showed off a new feature of their Nintendo Switch remake of Street Fighter II. Ultra Street Fighter II: The Final Challengers will contain all the characters and locations of this now 26-year-old title, but will also include a special new mode called Way of the Hadu. Here, players will take control of Ryu in a first-person perspective and use the Joy-Con's motion controls as they battle M. Bison lookalikes. I highly recommend everyone watching this go and find this video. Way of the Hadu. It is for, the upcoming version of Street Fighter on the Switch. You have to check this out. Not because it's good, because it's fucking miserable. It looks like the worst elements of like Wii-era shovelware, right? This video shows this guy holding two Joy-Cons, and there's just, random M. Bison people on the screen, and he just, moves his hands around, just barely, and Ryu in first person is doing all this crazy shit. He's, shooting fireballs, he's doing spin kicks. At one point, he actually takes his hands and does the Hadouken fireball. This guy does it, right? And Ryu in the game does a spin kick. It obviously doesn't work. I have no idea why they're including this, because here's the thing. More importantly, I don't know why they're showing this off. That's the thing that blows my mind. They're actually showing this off. They're like, oh, look at this feature. Looks like shit, doesn't it? Well, you can get it. In general, I don't understand why this game is even coming out. I love Street Fighter. If you don't know this, I love Street Fighter. I highly recommend you go get yourself a copy of Street Fighter V on the PlayStation 4 or PC. I love Street Fighter. But Street Fighter 2, great game. Game changer. One of the best games of all time. It's 26 years old. Why is this being released or even being touted as a Switch launch title? This is lazy, Capcom. I guess that's the other game they're actually putting out anytime soon. Is this a re-release of a 26-year-old game? Over a quarter of a century old. Great game, probably not what people want, and these dumbass gimmicks are not going to entice people further. Also, the Joy-Cons do not look comfortable for a fighting game. Like, you just have an analog stick and 4 buttons. Like, nah, man. That's not how it works. I don't want to use shoulder buttons to do heavy attacks. I want to get out my fight stick. Anyway, whatever. Toot toot. Let's talk about the games that are going to be coming out this week on Tuesday. Halo Wars 2 will be available on the PC and Xbox One. Also, on the PlayStation 4, Vita, and PC, Berserk and the Band of the Hawk. This is like a Musou-style game based off the anime and manga Berserk. Ys Origin will be out on the PlayStation 4 and Vita, which of course is a remake of the classic JRPG, which I've never really played before. Psychonauts in the Rhombus of Ruin will be available on the PlayStation 4, which I believe is just a VR game, so don't get your hopes up if you don't have a headset. And Dystoria will be available on the PC on Thursday. Forma 8 on the PlayStation 4 and Vita on Friday. A Pixel Story will be out on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Seabed Prelude will be available on the PC. Because it's a prelude to the seabed, baby. And Trulon, the Shadow Engine, will be available on the Xbox One. Beep, beep. That's going to do it for the hype train. Shine on, you crazy hype train. I'm going to miss that crazy caboose. Anyway, it is time that we step outside. I know a place that's always warm with the glow of cold, hard cash. That's right, it's time for the Chart Park, the land where money grows on trees. Yes, the Chart Park. This is the bar show where we talk all about those fat cats of Wall Street who tip their top hats towards Lady Luck as we discuss all the legal, business, and financial news, and hopefully don't stumble over our words anymore. We have to open up with everyone's favorite subject, anti-Semitism. Woo! We're talking about anti-Semitism. Ah! All right. It's been a few bad days for YouTube's biggest star. Following a scathing article written by the Wall Street Journal, Disney has dropped the popular video game personality PewDiePie from their Maker Studio division. According to a Maker Studio spokesperson, quote, although Felix has created a following for being provocative and irreverent, he clearly went too far in this case, and the resulting videos are inappropriate. Maker Studios has made this decision to end our affiliation with him going forward. Huh? What did PewDiePie do? Well, no, we have to go on to the next bit. YouTube also has severed ties with PewDiePie, releasing a statement to Variety. Now, they're not going to cancel his channel. However, here's what they said. Quote, we decided to cancel the release of Scare PewDiePie Season 2, and we're moving the PewDiePie channel from Google Preferred, end quote. This stems from the Wall Street Journal article, the expose, I guess you could say, or an article, highlighting PewDiePie's recent string of videos referencing anti-Semitism and Hitler's Third Reich. The YouTube celebrity paid $5 to a video creation service, one of which involved two young men holding up a sign that said, "Death to all Jews," and another where a man dressed as Jesus Christ said, "Hitler did nothing wrong." PewDiePie defended his videos just recently, I believe it was on Friday. Here's what he said, quote, this shows how stupid this website is and how far you can push it by paying $5, end quote. Because of course the service, you pay $5, they'll do whatever you want. And so he decided to do things like Hitler did nothing wrong and having these people hold up this sign that said, death to all Jews. In a video titled My Response, PewDiePie addressed the controversy and his recent loss of business by saying, quote, I do strongly believe that you can joke about anything, but I also believe there's a right way and not the best way to joke about things. I love to push boundaries, and I would consider myself a rookie comedian. I've definitely made mistakes before, but I've always been growing and learning. It's always been a growing and learning experience for me. It's something that I've learned to appreciate, and I think this whole situation has definitely been that for me. It's something I'm just going to have to keep in mind moving forward. I understand that things have consequences. This video is not me trying to justify that. These comments were sandwiched in between a lengthy monologue of accusing the media and Wall Street Journal of trying to bury him. Quote, "Old school media doesn't like internet personalities because they're afraid of us. It was an attack by the media to discredit me, decrease my influence and my economic worth. If people don't like my jokes, I fully respect that. I understand that. I acknowledge that I took things too far, and that's something I will definitely keep in mind moving forward. But the reaction and the outrage has been nothing but insanity." End quote. Ooh, we're gonna have fun talking about this, aren't we, everybody? Everyone's got a big smile on their face. We're talking about anti-Semitism. Whoa! Before we go any further, though, let's just acknowledge what anti-Semitism is, in case you don't know. Anti-Semitism is a prejudicial view and hostility towards people of Jewish descent. And in case you don't know, the history of Jews around the world hasn't been great. There's a lot. Please just Google what happened to the Jews throughout history. They have been blamed for things that are impossible, that no one small group of people could ever do, and been persecuted. Obviously, they were not the sole receivers of the horrors of the Holocaust, but they are a large portion of that. It's anti-Semitism is horrible, absolutely horrible. Now let's also let's at least acknowledge that there's been a recent rise in self-described Nazis in the media. Even if that's just new media, like online media, people that believe certain things about different cultures and different races that are wrong and hateful and terrible. Okay, we need to acknowledge that. It's very, very important. And we also need to acknowledge that, humor is something that will often take controversial subjects, controversial issues, and make light of them. Cool? Cool. So here's my thing. And I want you to listen to this all the way through, because it's very important that you listen to this all the way through. I understand where PewDiePie was coming from. I get it. He was attempting, and this is just my guess, but this is what I saw in it, he was attempting to expose the insanity that are these $5 we'll make a video of anything websites. He was showing that for some of these websites, economic currency is more valuable than morality. That they were all too willing to say death to all Jews or Hitler did nothing wrong for $5. They were being paid off to sell out their morals, or hopefully sell out their morals unless they are, anti-Semites, right? That's what he was going for. But there's a bit of a problem here because, I don't know. I'm not really sure how to describe this. I've never been a fan of PewDiePie. Not that I dislike him. I have defended him because, he's a guy that he has a lot of influence, and in general, he doesn't, abuse it. He used to use really offensive language. He used to use the R word frequently, and then he came out and said, you know what, that was really immature of me, and I apologize for that. He really seemed to have at least a good head on his shoulders. He didn't let the fame get to his head. And of course, no one forced him to apologize for using the R word. He came to that conclusion on his own. But he doesn't seem to understand what's happening here. He seems to be under the delusion that somehow Disney and YouTube would be fine with him showing imagery of Hitler speeches, of PewDiePie dressed up in a soldier's Third Reich outfit, of people holding a sign that says death to all Jews, or someone saying Hitler did nothing wrong. They would have been fine with that if it wasn't for the gosh darn Wall Street Journal. That somehow the Wall Street Journal is able to boss YouTube and Disney around. Two of the, of course, YouTube is Google. These are the biggest companies in the world. They would not just simply kowtow if they believed this was in good taste. But I don't think it has anything to do with the Wall Street Journal because, they're busy doing other things. They had this brought to their attention and they said, hell no, we're not okay with that. And PewDiePie keeps saying, you know what? It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. Here's the thing though, jokes can be provocative. They can cause introspection and change, and they can make you see the whole world in a new light. They can challenge your views, and they can undercut your already preconceived notions with humor, so you don't even realize, and then you go, that's right. I never thought of it that way, but this humor has done that for me. But the problem is that PewDiePie used anti-Semitism as a punchline, as a shocking element. The problem is that you could substitute death to all Jews and Hitler did nothing wrong with anything else. You know, you could say, kill all dogs. Dogs should die. Exterminate dogs. Whatever you want to put in there. Something that would be equally provocative without having the historical context of the motherfucking Holocaust. There's a lot of places you can go. Okay, so what if he just did death to all Jews once? But then he doubles down on it with this Hitler did nothing wrong and referencing the Third Reich. And where is the punchline? Where is the joke? Because he doesn't actually talk about the stuff. When they're holding up that sign that says death to all Jews, he's just covering his face and going, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. I can't believe that they did that. He never addresses anti-Semitism. That's never a part of it. It's just a joke. It's a throwaway punchline. And if you're gonna open up racism, you better have something to fucking say about it. That's really important, because otherwise it just comes off as, not only am I willing to joke about racism, I just don't really care about it. And why would PewDiePie? He's never going to have to experience these issues. He's never going to be the victim of anti-Semitism, and yet he can get all the laughs about it. And even if this was a comment on consumerism, what exactly is he doing? Because he's not out there saying anything against prejudice. He's just profiting off of it. And he's the one that gave them the money and told them what to write. They didn't do this on their own. He didn't give them $5 and they sent them this thing that said death to all Jews. And he goes, look at that, that's insane. No, he told them to write that. He told them to say that. And that is the problem. But he wants to blame the media, that there's this idea, that there's this conspiracy of these media people that just don't get the joke. But it's not very funny, PewDiePie. It's not very funny, because there's real world implications. But he doesn't want to accept that. He gives this half-hearted apology and then just goes on this rant about the media, trying to ruin his credibility and that they're afraid of him. They're not afraid of you, man. You made it whatever. I just think PewDiePie really needs to reconsider what he's doing. And I'm just really bummed out that he, in the entire apology video, he never really even addressed it. He said, I'm sorry if, you got offended and stuff like that, which is just the coward's way out. So, I don't know. Just really disappointing. But I do want to introduce a brand new segment that I'm really excited to. I'm so excited for this segment. Wait till you guys hear about this one. We're going to be opening up this brand new segment for the Pressure Cast. It's called Hoops! 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 3 points! That's a hoops! Slam dunk! That's a hoops! Alley-oop! More like alley-hoops! Yeah! European League! Hoops! Hoops! Yeah, hoops! Passing it! Hoops! Yeah, running the court! Hoops! Hoops! All right. Man, that was an amazing segment right there. That is hoops. I'm really excited about that. I hope it takes off. I hope everybody really appreciate that. I'm actually gonna I want to look up online. I want to see the immediate response. I'm just so excited about this. Oh my God. What? The media is saying that last segment was about basketball. That's insane. Hoops has nothing to do with basketball. If anyone watching thought that last segment was about basketball, or if you're listening, I want to apologize to you, because that was not about basketball. That was not about basketball. I never even said basketball. That was hoops. That we were talking about hoops. All right, and now they're trying to paint me as some guy that talks about basketball. First of all, this is a video game podcast, all right, not a basketball podcast. I was talking about hoops, but that's not the side the media wants you to hear. They just want you to believe that somehow I'm trying to sneak basketball into this video game podcast. Never said that word. Shame on the media. Shame on the media. They're just out there to get me because they're afraid of me, and they're, nice try, Wall Street Journal. Anyway, moving on. Last month, Capcom released Resident Evil 7 to impressive sales and solid reviews, though many were confused by the revelation that its launch shipment was only 2.5 million compared to Resident Evil 6's 4.5 million. Capcom has explained their decision to lower their shipment numbers. Quote, compared to Resident Evil 6, this may seem like a lower initial pace. However, we can attribute to the recent wider adoption of digital downloads and the transition transition from a sharp initial spike in sales for games to a continuous long tail. Further, we believe that achieving our fiscal year target of 4 million units for this title is wholly possible, as we expect sales to continue for a longer period. Buoyed on highly positive post-launch reviews from both the media and consumers. End quote. You know what? I am not doubting Capcom's explanation right there. That makes total sense. Think back to when Resident Evil 6 came out. If you didn't own a PC, were you really downloading that many games? I mean, honestly, besides phones, of course. You know, on the PlayStation 3 and on the Xbox 360, the only time I really ever download games was for PlayStation Plus. Smaller titles that were digital only, sure, but if it was like a big AAA title like a Resident Evil 6, hell no, I'll buy the disc because it would take forever to download on PlayStation 3 or Xbox. So I believe them. I honestly do, but I can't help but think that they're surprised by how successful Resident Evil 7 has been. And it has been successful. We'll talk about that later when we get to the charts at the end of this segment. I really think that they were like, woof, Street Fighter V just sold like shit. I guess one of our biggest franchises isn't doing so hot. And then they released Umbrella Core on PlayStation at work and you know, on PC and everywhere. Just a digital game related to Resident Evil. And it also sells like shit. So I think they honestly believed, and you know, while I do believe what they said about digital distribution, it's a fact. More people are buying things digitally. I think on the other end, they were a little nervous that maybe Resident Evil wasn't going to be a big hit, especially because this has, you know, if you look at it on the surface, it has little to do with Resident Evil. It's this like first-person game. People thought it looked too much like Amnesia. It didn't have the best, response from critics that played the demo that was released months and months and months ago. But at the end of the day, got great reviews. It's selling like crazy. So I think they're taken aback, and instead of admitting like, oh, we didn't think it was going to do well, because why would you admit that? That's never going to help out your business. Oh, we thought it was going to sell like shit. Never going to say that. Instead of like, you know, digital distribution has a growing, area for game purchases. Whatever. Moving on, some very sad news from video game preservationist BYUU. His name is Bew. He's the developer behind the emulator Hygen, and he's announced that he's going to end his highly ambitious SNES preservation project. Last month, a package containing $10,000 worth of PAL territory games were stolen while in transit to Bew's location. The games were lent to Bew by an unnamed donor, and he actually responded, Bew did, he responded in this statement, announcing the cancellation. The next step is trying to obtain the insurance claim, then I'm going to start making payments, each paycheck, and try to reimburse the sender until he's able to repurchase all 100 games locally. 100 games of rare games, by the way. Or if he prefers, he can just keep the money that's equivalent to the value of the cartridges. I won't be purchasing the carts to be delivered to me because I don't want to risk shipping them back. It may be my fault. The USPS, the United States Postal Service, fucked us over. But it is my fault for asking for the donation and for asking to risk so many games at once. And as such, it is my responsibility to pay for it. I also want to be clear, the donor never asked for reimbursement upon loss. It was my decision, and it's going to happen because I can't live with it. I can't begin to stress how utterly disappointed I am that after over a dozen years of developing software and giving it away for free, I don't even have enough popularity to locate a single USPS employee who would even talk to me, but that's the reality. I'm a nobody with no power. This is like the most depressing story of the week, and this is where we there's no legal thing yet, although I'm sure that he'll be getting that money back from USPS, but this is the end of an entire project. In case you don't know, you might assume like, oh, SNES games, I can download them on my Wii, I can download them on my Wii U, I can download them on my phone, I can download them on PC. Who cares? Wrong. There's a major difference when it comes to quality of ROM dumps. When someone like you, who's one of the best in the industry, the best developers in emulation, takes the time to properly dump and verify everything, you get a great dump. It sounds funny when I said that. You get a great ROM that is more authentic. When you don't, there might be certain things that don't work quite right. And they're not huge deals. They're not like, I'm sure if you were to sit down and play, a bad dump of, say, I don't know, whatever SNES game compared to the original game, you might not quite notice the difference right away. But there is one, and while that might be playable, that's not the purpose of preservation. You're trying to have these games exist for future generations to enjoy and experience, and just have that historical context for video games, because we're still in the very early stages of this medium growing, which I have no doubt is going to be around for centuries. So it's very depressing that he goes out of his way, gets this $10,000 worth of games. He's the expert that's really going to handle this, and it goes missing. That really bums me out, and I hope he reconsiders, restarting that project. Because in case you don't know, emulation for the SNES, like 100% emulation, is still not quite possible, and more importantly, extremely hardware intensive. Sure, you can go and play a really dumbed down SNES emulator, and you'll have a good time, and that's fine. But if you want to absolutely authentically replicate the hardware of the SNES, you're going to need a beefy PC. No joke. Like I have a pretty damn good PC, and it still struggles on some SNES titles using high-gen. And when you look side to side of high-gen versus SNES 9X or ZNES or whatever one that you prefer to use, it's night and day. You can tell that there is texture that is missing in those other games. This is not some sort of odd tour, sniffing the wine cork going, I don't think this is quite right for the SNES. There is a major difference. You need to see it for yourself if you get a chance. Hopefully, he can figure that out, though, and I don't blame him for canceling the entire project. That is not a pity party. He must feel horrible about that because he cost someone their video game collection from over 20 years ago. Oh my god, that's horrible. That's horrible. Anyway, moving on. Longtime Valve employee Eric Wolpaw has left the company. Wolpaw is best known for his writing on popular titles such as Left 4 Dead and its sequel, Half-Life Episode 1 and 2, and Portal. According to Kotaku, he'll be joining Double Fine to help write the script for the upcoming Psychonauts 2. There's really not much to the story, but how awesome is it that the dude who worked on the script for Portal is going to be working on Psychonauts 2? That sounds like a match made in heaven. Moving on, John Smidley, the former CEO of EverQuest, H1Z1, and PlanetSide developer Daybreak Games, will be heading a brand new studio for Amazon's game division. Smidley will lead a new development studio based in San Diego. According to the press release, his team is already hard at work on an ambitious new project that taps into the power of the AWS cloud and Twitch to connect players around the globe in a thrilling new game world. I've been doing the PRESSURECAST for longer than Amazon has been in video games, and, John Smidley, he's got a great track record. He's a talented guy. He knows how to get things done. Obviously, he's been involved in EverQuest and PlanetSide and H1Z1. He knows what he's doing. Amazon, on the other hand, I don't really know what's going on with their games division, because all the stories we've ever had about it are about, we hired this guy. We're going to purchase this studio, or we're going to buy some software here. They haven't really released a game yet, and I understand it's still, really early for them as a studio. They've been around, 3 years, 4 years? What is the game they're even working on? There's one game, and it's like a 4 versus 4 thing. I think it's called Breakaway? I can't really remember, but Amazon has spent all this money. They went out of their way to buy Twitch. They went out of their way to hire on people like Kim Swift, who have since left the studio without releasing a single project. I don't understand why they're here. I don't understand why they're in this business. There must be someone within Amazon that is championing this, and they're listening. Because if I were them, I would just... Why? I would get into publishing. I would not get into development and all this needless stuff. I mean, Breakaway looks interesting. It's like a 3D Smash Brothers, I guess. But it's been, 3 years. Do something. Release something. I mean, it doesn't have to be a big AAA, whatever. It could have been a little 2D thing. Any independent developer, not any, but many independent developers would have killed for that budget, and they would have put out something 2 years ago. Seriously. Ridiculous. Moving on. Following last week's news that an animated Castlevania series is coming to Netflix, Frederator Studios have announced they are currently developing a cartoon based off of 2010's Costume Quest. The animation company will develop the series for Amazon Prime Studios next year. Once again, not much to the story, but I gotta say, this makes sense to me. When I heard all about Frederator's working on a Castlevania show, I'm like, why? Their styles don't mesh. You've got one that's a very gothic element, and you've got, Frederator, which traditionally makes, pretty colorful, happy things. Costume Quest, on the other hand, perfect sense. If you never played that game, it was released by Double Fine, the same people who do things like Psychonauts and Broken Age. It's a really cool idea of just, kids on Halloween night, they're wearing their costumes, it's an RPG. It's one of those things where I think kids can get into because, it's about being a kid, and, nostalgic adults who kind of miss trick-or-treating, they can go back and do that. And, we're getting to that point now where there's really no, it's gothic enough in a way because, it's dark enough where kids will kind of get into it because they're vampires and stuff. But at the same time, it's a light and fluffy show. So I don't know. Sounds good to me. Anyway, the Kickstarter for the recently announced Apocalypse Now video game has been canceled, though it will resume its donation drive through a private service. After only reaching $172,000 of its $900,000 goal, developer Urbus has transitioned its funding directly to its own website. Explaining the decision, Urbus stated, "The new platform will serve as a rallying point for the community and represents the team's long-term commitment to both funding the project and sharing details of the development process." Urbus has said that they will be releasing this game at some point in 2020. Okay, Kickstarter is weird, alright? It has somewhat of a shady reputation. So I can't blame them for thinking, oh, this is Kickstarter's fault or something, right? But having your own crowdfunding on your own website is equally, if not more, shady. I don't think that's quite the solution that they should have gone for. But really, let's talk about this real quick. The reason they're doing this isn't because, oh, you know what? Kickstarter is not the way for us. We want to make sure we have our own funding on our own website. That's not the reason. It's because it wasn't going to make its goal. And with Kickstarter, you have a certain deadline. 30 days, 50 days, 60 days. If you don't hit it by that time, you failed. You're done. But they don't have to deal with that on their own website. In fact, they don't even need to show how much funding they have. They can just say, oh, it's going on indefinitely, and they can just take all the resources they want at once. Because honestly, I hate to break the news to them, no one wants this Apocalypse Now video game. Anyone that's into video games is like, Apocalypse Now? What? Licensed game? No, thank you. And anyone that likes cinema, like Apocalypse Now, is like, what? They're making a video game out of that? Why? Why do that? Don't do this. There are a bunch of talented developers involved in this, and if the game somehow comes out after it gets funded and it's amazing, I'll eat my words. I promise. I'm not here to just talk crap. I just don't see it happening. Seriously, what are you doing? What are you doing? Stop trying to make Apocalypse Now a video game. They're going so out of their way to do this. Oh, alright. Anyway, we have the NPD list for the best-selling games in North America for the month of January. We're going to start at number 10 and go all the way up. Here they are. Number 10 is FIFA 17. Number 9 is Overwatch. Number 8 is Watch Dogs 2, Electric Boogaloo. Number 7 is Madden NFL 17. Number 6 is Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Prologue, and that's its debut month, so not bad for the 6th spot. Number 5 is NBA 2K17. Number 4 is Battlefield 1. Number 3 is Grand Theft Auto 5. Number 2 is Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. What a disappointment. Still in the top 3 best-selling games in North America. But number 1 in its debut month is Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, which is kind of impressive because it came out later in the month. So either sales were incredibly soft for the month of January, or it did very well for itself. I imagine a little bit of both. Congratulations, Capcom. Moving on, we have the UK charts. Yes, those people over in that wacky swinging land of England also buy video games. Here's what they bought. Starting off with number 10, Watch Dogs 2, Electric Boogaloo. 9 was Overwatch. 8 was Hitman, the complete first season, which is now available on disc, so you don't just have to download it. Number 7 was Rocket League, which is also available on disc. Number 6 was Battlefield 1. Number 5 was Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Number 4 was FIFA 17. Number 3 was Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. If you think that's a little bit low, these are the weekly sales, not the monthly sales, so this is just talking about how many it sold in 1 week. Number 2 was Neo for its debut month. Neo, a brand new game. It's in second place, because in first place, it is, of course, Grand Theft Auto 5, which for some reason will never, ever, ever, ever fucking die. Now let's go over to the cursed land of trains known as Japan to find out what are their 10 best-selling games. Number 10 was Minecraft PlayStation Vita Edition. Number 9 was Grand Theft Auto 5. Number 8 was Yokai Watch 3 Sukiyaki on the 3DS. Number 7 was Super Mario Maker for the 3DS. Number 6 was Poochie and Yoshi Woolly World on the 3DS. Number 5 was Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon for the 3DS. There's a lot of 3DS games on here. Number 4 was Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. So, not great. It kind of stumbled from when it launched in Japan. Number 3 is For Goddess Online Cyber Dimension Neptunia on the PlayStation 4. Number 2 is Neo for its debut week, only in the second spot, because number 1 is another 3DS game, Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 3 Professional on the 3DS. But what are the best-selling consoles over in Japan? Well, I'm glad you asked because I have the list right here. Starting out with the PlayStation 4 with 22,228, new 3DS LL with 19,126, PlayStation Vita with 8,479, PlayStation 4 Pro with 6,693, 2DS with 5,226, new 3DS with 1,435, Wii U with 543, PlayStation 3 with 473, and in last place, for the 6th week in a row, is the Xbox One with 112. Being outsold by the PlayStation 3 and the Wii U. I believe in you, Xbox. Rise like the Phoenix. Come back. Don't be in last place anymore. In case you don't know, there were a few weeks where the Xbox One was actually doing okay in Japan. Okay. Not amazing? Okay. It wasn't bad. Okay. You know? Come on, Xbox One. I know you have it in you. Somehow buy Yokai Watch from Nintendo and make it exclusive on Xbox. That'll work. Never gonna happen, but it would work. But that's gonna have to do it for the Chartberg, the land where money grows on trees. Good segment. I'm still very disappointed in the media, covering my brand new segment, Hoops. Shame on them. Shame on them. The bastards. Whatever. Sometimes this world feels too big. I just wish it was a little bit smaller. Oh, that reminds me. It's time to get tiny. It's time for Pocket Talk, Pocket Talk, Pocket Talk. This is the part of the show where we talk about handheld and mobile news. And we only have one story this week, but it's a doozy. Pokemon Go fans have a brand new challenge. Niantic has released 80 new Pocket Monsters to catch. Niantic CEO John Hank reassured fans there's still plenty to come. Quote, Pokemon Go is a live experience, which will be continuing to support and evolve in new and interesting ways for years to come, with new gameplay features, in-game and live events, more Pokemon to discover, and much more. End quote. Also included in this update are new berries, outfits, evolution items, and something referred to as encounter gameplay. I've seen a lot of kerfuffle about this online. People are, once again, they're hyped, they're ready to get back out there, they're ready to play more Pokemon Go. And I think that, from a release standpoint, I'm a little perplexed why they decided to launch this right now. I wonder how long they've had this update available and, if it was really being worked on or if they could just flip the switch at any time. Because in case you don't know, across America right now, there is we're experiencing a very mild winter. Some areas are still, pretty cold, but most are experiencing a mild winter. The temperature is higher. There's less snow. Why am I talking about the weather? Because it's Pokemon Go. You go outside and you do stuff. I wonder if they saw that and just, immediately pivoted. It's a possibility, but people are pumped for this once again because 80 new Pokemon, all these new features. They're really excited. I'm probably most intrigued by a statement about, there's much more for years to come. Like, really? Years to come? Because as this game becomes more popular, I guess it couldn't really become more popular, but retains popularity, there's an increased chance that we'll see new developments in location tracking technology, which would make the experience even better. I wonder if we'll get to a point 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line where you look at Pokemon Go then and you look back to what it was when it launched and it's night and day. That the graphics just look so much better, that the location tracking is so much better, that the mechanics and the battle system is just more fleshed out. I really hope we get to that point because right now it's really interesting. It's a cool game for exactly what it does. I need a little more meat on that bone, and it can't just be more Pokemon. Like, I need a little bit more interaction there, but very exciting if you're a fan of Pokemon Go and you played it already. I'm talking about like the 80 new Pokemon and all that kind of stuff. Let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you thought. But anyway, that was it. That's going to have to do it for Pocket Talk, Pocket Talk, Pocket Talk. Good segment. That was a great segment. Pocket Talk. So awesome. We have come to the end of the show, and it's right about now that we like to take a look back at the week that was, where we like to go back in time 10 years ago and beyond. And a little something we like to call Strong History. Yes, we're going to be talking about all the anniversaries for the upcoming week. 10 years ago, on the Wii, Sonic and the Secret Rings was released. And man, that game was terrible. Also 10 years ago, NBA Street Home Court was released on the Xbox 360. This is a game nobody talks about. Everyone remembers NBA Street 1, 2, Volume 3 on the GameCube and PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox, but few people actually recall that there was a point where they had another NBA Street game on last generation's hardware. I played it. It's not particularly good. It's not particularly a good experience, but it's tragic that NBA Street is still dead. I don't understand. EA. I'll repeat myself for the millionth time. NBA Live isn't going to happen. 2K is the game. If you want a simulation, 2K is the game. Why not go after a different market? Get NBA Jam, get NBA Street, give it a big push, because the thing is, you're going to attract more than just hardcore basketball fans. You're also going to get people that just like arcade-style basketball. It seems obvious. Why don't you listen to me, EA? Yeah. Also, 10 years ago, Crackdown was launched on the Xbox 360, arguably the first true, what do you call their, killer app for the Xbox. I believe Crackdown actually sold a lot because it included a voucher for the Halo 3 beta. Yes, that's really how old it is. It was for the Halo 3 beta, but when people actually got it home, they realized that Crackdown was an amazing open-world game. You played as this cop who's like a futuristic cop, and you basically ran around and killed criminals. But the reason it was so addictive is because the only way to level up was to collect these orbs. There were like combat orbs and platforming orbs and driving orbs, and your skill drastically increased. Like you could jump 20 feet in the air. It was awesome. And it sort of, it basically turned this like open world run and gun game into almost like Banjo-Kazooie in a way. You're hunting around for these orbs and trying to track down where every last one is. It was a really cool game. It had a sequel that was not too good, but hey, don't worry, they're having another one coming out on the Xbox One. Hopefully that'll be great. 11 years ago, on the PlayStation 2, PSP, and Xbox 360, one of my all-time favorite games, Fight Night Round 3. Now, they have released Fight Night since this game. Obviously, there was Fight Night Champion. And was there a Round 4? Yeah, there was a Round 4. Weird. But I never thought the Fight Night series got any better than Fight Night Round 3. It was slow, it was methodical, one punch made all the difference, much like real boxing. But some people thought it was too technical, so EA dumbed it down for the little babies. Well, bullshit. I think they need to go back and make themselves another Fight Night that is in the vein of Round 3. I guess those guys are working on the UFC games, though. EA, why don't you ever listen to me about your sports titles? Come on! 12 years ago, on the PlayStation 2, Kessen 3 was released, the final entry in the Kessen series from Koei Tecmo. This was basically a combination between real-time strategy and Dynasty Warriors. And before you say, isn't that basically what they already do with the tactics games for, on the Dynasty Warriors? Not really. This was a giant battlefield where you could zoom in and then take control of your character. It was really awesome. It was a great showpiece for the PlayStation 2. And we haven't had a new one in 12 years. Also 12 years ago, Gran Turismo 4 was launched on the PlayStation, a very late entry. I know some people that say that this is the best Gran Turismo game ever, and for good reason. This is the one that introduced dirt rally cars. Go back and play, Gran Turismo 4 on a standard definition television, and it is immaculate. It looks so gorgeous. One of my favorite games of all time, absolutely. Also 12 years ago, Project Snowblind was launched on the Xbox and PlayStation 2. What is Project Snowblind, you might be asking? Well, it is Deus Ex 3. Yes, really. There was a point where after Deus Ex 1 and 2, they were working on a Deus Ex spin-off, or maybe it was going to be a sequel, and then at some point in development, they're like, nah, fuck it, cancel it, we want to make something different. And they took all of that, that work and turned it into an original property called Project Snowblind, and it's really obviously like an action-oriented Deus Ex because you have all these augments that you're adding to your body, you're changing the way that your eyes work. It's Deus Ex, but an action game. And it was pretty good game. And you can download it on Steam, so if you really want to check it out. And 12 years ago in Japan, 10,000 Bullets was launched on the PlayStation 2. This is a really sad game for me because I was so hyped for 10,000 Bullets. It was supposed to come out in America, and I barely knew anything about it. I just saw a guy with a briefcase that was running around shooting people, and it was called 10,000 Bullets, which is like the coolest fucking name ever. I guess it was based off a manga or something. Sadly, it only launched in Japan and Europe and never here in America, which is really depressing. I still hold a flame in my heart for you, 10,000 Bullets. One day I will play you. If you've ever played that game, let me know in the comments below. 15 years ago, on the original Xbox, Jet Set Radio Future launched on the Xbox. This was the sequel to Jet Set Radio, or I guess it was Jet Grind Radio here in the United States, and it was an exclusive on the original Xbox, which is a pretty big deal back then, because this really made the Xbox seem like it would be the successor to the Dreamcast, having all those franchises move over there. Jet Set Radio Future is not as good as the original Jet Grind Radio. It just isn't. It doesn't have the lighthearted nature, and they removed a lot of the cool graffiti mechanics. It kind of turns into a bit of a button masher mixed with Tony Hawk. If you've never played one of these Jet Set games, you have magnetic skates, and you like to shoot graffiti. That's a terrible description. Let's just move on. 15 years ago. 16 years ago, Fear Effect 2 was released on the PlayStation, and 17 years ago, Fear Effect 1 was released on the PlayStation. These were some really cool, cel-shaded, early cel-shaded. I'm not sure if you could classify it as cel-shading, but really cool early third-person shooters. The reason they got a lot of coverage, though, is because in Fear Effect 2, you discover that the main character, who is a woman, is a lesbian, and this was just at that time where the general video game playing audience was like, yeah, bro, I want to see that. I'm going to buy this video game because I want to see pixelated girls kissing. But everybody thankfully matured out of that. Except Japan. 18 years ago on the PlayStation, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter was launched on the PlayStation. Really cool fighting game. This is before Marvel vs. Capcom. This was back when it was just like, hey, we have that Marvel superhero game, and we have Street Fighter, and there are a few differences. I believe Dan is a celebrity in this game, if I'm not mistaken, because he always gives you his autograph, and I don't think he ever did that in any other game, so it has its own cool little features. Also, 19 years ago, on the original PlayStation, Gex 3D Enter the Gecko. Holy crap. I cannot tell you how hyped I was for this game when it came out, because Gex 3D was essentially Sony's answer. Not really Sony, but you know, it was going to be a timed exclusive on a Sony platform, but it was the answer to Mario 64. Except Gex, being the gecko, he could climb up on walls, he could go anywhere. It was going to be amazing. It's not really amazing. It's a really clunky early 3D platformer where it's hard to see the enemies, and the hitboxes are all over the place, so you die constantly, and it's way too dark. It's hard to see where you're going. But you know, I still have my copy on the PlayStation 1. I busted it out not too long ago, and I think I even played it on a live stream once. And it was not great. It was not great anymore, but I was very excited back in the day. 22 years ago, on the Genesis and Super Nintendo, NBA Jam Tournament Edition was launched. Fantastic game. Definite improvement over the original NBA Jam on the Genesis and SNES. And I don't want to sound a little biased here, but I think I prefer the Genesis version over the SNES. Yeah, I grew up with a Genesis, but when I played them side by side once, I really gotta say, it was just, you know, blast processing, man. Also, 22 years ago, on the PC-98 in Japan, Sex was released. That's right, they had a game that was just called Sex. Here's the description. The game, with such a simple yet expressive title, is also rather simple and to the point in its concept. It is about having sex and nothing else. There is no real story in the game. In the beginning, a crazy-looking character named Mr. Funk, who speaks in Japanese with heavy dose of stereotypical hip-hop lingo, announces that the player is now declared King of Sex. Yes! And can therefore directly have sex with any of the 3 available young and pretty girls. Nana, the cute squirrel girl, Makoto, the mature woman, probably in her early 20s, and the obligatory underage girl with pink hair. Yeah. Ew. 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 No. Ew. 20 years ago, sex on the PC 98. 24 years ago, in Japan, Star Fox was launched on the Super Nintendo. We'll talk more about that when it launches in America. Also, 24 years ago, Flashback, The Quest for Identity on the Genesis, one of my all-time favorite games that has a terrible remake on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Do not play those versions. You want to play the original Flashback. Sort of, like a platforming and adventure game, kind of like Out of This World. Just a very cool... game that took a lot of influence from Arnold Schwarzenegger movies and hard sci-fi. Definitely a Running Man influence. There's a point where you have to compete on a game show to win money to escape a planet. Really cool game. Highly recommend it. 26 years ago in Japan, in the arcades, King of the Monsters was launched. A really stupid hybrid of fighting games, wrestling games, and giant monster movies. Love that game. 30 years ago, in arcades, in Japan, Contra was launched, back when Konami gave a damn. This, of course, is the brutally hard run-and-gun platforming game. Absolutely love Contra. Who doesn't love it? 31 years ago, on the Famicom Disk System, Zelda no Detsu, the Hyrule Fantasy, and Super Mario Bros. Were launched on the Famicom Disk System because 31 years ago, this week, the Famicom Disk System launched in Japan. This also means that 31 years ago, Zelda launched. So it's kind of cool. This is the 31st anniversary of Zelda, and the next month, we get Zelda on a brand new platform. It's kind of crazy. And, I guess we should just talk about this for a second here. Zelda 1 was a really great game. I played a lot of it back in the day. It, there was nothing else really quite like it. It was open world. You could go anywhere and... you could fight all these monsters. I don't want to say you could do anything because there were plenty of brick walls that you would hit with puzzles and all that. But the original Zelda was so unique and so wonderful, which was why it was such a shock when they made Zelda 2 and it wasn't the same game. It was super different. But Zelda 1 changed a lot of things, and contrary to what some people have said, it is not the first video game RPG. Not even close. There are a thing called PCs. They've existed for a while, and trust me, they had one first. Also, 37 years ago, and lastly, 37 years ago, HAL Laboratories was born. That's right, HAL, which of course is where, Kirby was created. Many classic Nintendo games, and also where Satoru Iwata got his start with Nintendo. HAL was a second party for Nintendo, and man, if you want to just get really, how do I even phrase this? If you just want to be blown away by the history of video games, look up, Iwata talking about HAL and his time at HAL, and just hear the stories about working in an apartment. Like, they would rent out an apartment and just stack it with PCs for these guys to work on Nintendo games. And obviously they did a lot of great work with the original Balloon Fight, where they fixed that game up. Also, they worked on a bunch of just random titles before Nintendo picked them up, where it was like pool games, just really simple and stupid stuff, but you can see things like, S. Iwata worked on this game. He's just this nobody, and it's really, really amazing. HAL obviously went on to do a lot of more stuff because they made Super Smash Bros., and that is a game series that is still going strong all these years later. HAL, 37 years young. Great studio. But that's gonna have to do it for Strong History! Let's take the time machine. Beep boop beep 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 boop boop boop. Good segment as always. Very good segment. Well, we finally reached the end of the show. And you know what that means? It's time to close out the show. That's right, we're closing out the show right now. If you want to see me talk about the video game For Honor, there's only one place you can go. youtube.com/videogamesAreDumb. Or I guess you could go to videogamesaredumb.com if you wanted to watch that video. That will be my review. That will be going up on Tuesday. And I think that's pretty much it. The week after that, I'll be doing my video review of Halo Wars 2 on the Xbox One. Really excited for that. And then it's going to be a total clusterfuck because I will have to be either doing a review or an impression video of Horizon Zero Dawn. I want to make it a review, but my god, that game apparently is 30 hours long just for the campaign. And that doesn't sound like I could get that done in 2 days before the Nintendo Switch comes out. We'll have to wait and see. I'm definitely stressing out right now, and we all know that stress kills, but stress is what powers the Pressure Cast, because the Pressure Cast is forever. Bye, everybody.